All right, let's get this started. Hello, everybody. Good morning from the Pacific West Coast. Good just afternoon from the U.S. East Coast. Good evening from Italy, and good ungodly hour 0 dark 30 down in Australia. So it's great to be here. This is Lars Light from the Somme Journal. We're here wanting to thank our partners at SomCon, National Geographic Publishing and their new Sotheby's Wine Encyclopedia, and of course, as I said, Somme Journal and the Tasting Panel magazine. And with us today is Meredith May, our publisher and editor-in-chief. Hello, Meredith. Good morning to you. Great. So we're here to talk about luxury wines. And if you can see on my background, I even, just to help you out a little bit, I don't think anybody needs too much help dealing with what the definition of luxury is. But I did think that it would be fun to take a quick look at it. And sorry, I'm just having a little technical difficulty. Luxury is something that can be defined in many different ways. Um, but we thought it would be fun to talk about luxury as it applies to these sites and the wines that they give us. When we say luxury wines, we're probably talking about wines that make our experiences a little bit more special, wines that are a little bit more rarefied, so it becomes a luxury to enjoy them. But what makes them the true luxury is that these very rare, special plots of Earth, planet Earth, that they come from. So without further ado, why don't we just get into some of the people that are on these wonderful spots of Earth to talk about us. And we're going to start it off up in Oregon with Catherine Herman, who is a co-founder of Double Zero Wines. Her husband, Chris, grew up in Oregon, immigrant parents who were professors. So and they were European immigrants. So they had a wonderful wine tradition in their home, fell in love with the beauty of Oregon, the farms, the forests, and were early patrons of different wineries in the 1970s, going back that far. And her husband, Chris, was involved from many legal consultancy points of view for the industry there. And in 2015, founded 00 with his father. And today they specialize in Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And Catherine is going to tell us a little bit about, is it 00 or 00? How do you accurately pronounce it, Catherine?
I typically call it 00, but as long as you have a glass of our wine, you can call it anything you want.
Brilliant,
Um,
brilliant.
but thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here with excellent winemakers from these amazing regions around the world. So thank you for that great introduction. Like you said, my name is Catherine Herman, and our family winery is 00 Wines. We are based here in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, and so I'd like to tell you a little bit today about why the Willamette Valley is so special. So let me share my screen here. All right.
Great,
So like
perfect.
I said, we are 00 Wines, and we produce cool climate Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in Willamette Valley, Burgundy, and Champagne. So today I'm going to be talking to you about our home project in the Willamette Valley. So like you said, Lars, we are a first generation winery. Here's a photo of my father-in-law, Dr. Richard Herman, and my husband, Chris, inspecting some Pomar clone grapes from one of the vineyards we source from. Like you said, he was a professor at Oregon State University, and he specialized in the Douglas fir tree. He was a plant geneticist. So before we got into the wine business, he was traveling all around the world, talking to scientists about the Douglas fir tree. So we have a great love of Oregon and a great love of the special natural place that we have here. So here we are in the world. We are definitely in a cool climate, a zone 1 in North America. So you can see by the little marker here, we are in the very, very northwest of the United States. And the Willamette Valley is situated between two mountain ranges, and we're about 50 miles away from the Pacific Ocean. So you can see that to the west, we have the Coast Range between us and the mountains, and we're nestled in between the Coast Range and the Cascade Mountains. And our situation in the world is very important because the Coast Range has a number of very important valleys that in the evening, the cool, cold coastal air blows through right before sundown in the late afternoon. So we have very large diurnal swings. Our growing season is very, very long, very sunny. When people think about the Willamette Valley, specifically Portland in the North region, they think about rain. But we have about 100 days of rain-free, sunny, gorgeous weather. So we are very, very lucky to be in this very special region of the United States. If you've ever had a Willamette Valley wine, you've probably had sedimentary or jory soil wine. So we have a very, very active volcanic geologic history here in the Willamette Valley. And so we have incredible mineral-rich soils that are bright, bright red, and we call those jory. And conversely, we also have a wonderful sedimentary soil type that produces a very distinct sort of blue fruit character in our Pinot Noir. So when we started our project as a first generation winemaking family, with my husband's friends and connections, we said, we could plant a vineyard and we can have a wonderful estate, but it would take 50 years for us to really get the grape quality and the vine quality that we want. So we called up all of our friends. We said, we have this crazy idea to produce Pinot Noir and Chardonnay with some very interesting old school techniques. And we'd love if you could carve off a few tons of your grapes. Pretty please. So we're very honored to be able to work with some of the great heritage sites of the Willamette Valley. What you're seeing here on this slide is an original own-rooted vine planted in 1968 in a vineyard called the Chehalem Mountain Vineyard. And it was planted by one of the early pioneers of our region, Dick E. Rath. So we are very honored to be able to work with a fruit like this. In 2019, for the first time, we produced Pinot Noir from this vineyard. It's very, very special. There are only a few plots in the Willamette Valley that are still own-rooted. Here's a planting from 1971. It is in a vineyard called the Highland Vineyard, which is in the McMinnville AVA. And once again, this is planted on that beautiful jory volcanic soil. The interesting thing about the Highland Vineyard specifically is that it lies right in the middle of the Van Duzer corridor. So if you remember the corridors with the ocean air that I was talking about when I first started, this vineyard has one of the most incredible phenomenons that happens every day around 3 to 4 p.m. You can stand at the top of the vineyard. Once again, it's one of the oldest in the valley as well. And you can see the fog just roll through and just sit upon the grapes. It's pretty fantastic to watch from the top of the vineyard. So we have a few very special clones, specifically of Chardonnay in the Willamette Valley. We did originally plant California clones in the valley, and because we were so cool, the Wente clone that was originally brought up from California in the 60s and 70s didn't ripen. So people really thought maybe it's too cool here in the Willamette Valley for Chardonnay, and a lot of it was actually ripped out and replanted with Pinot Gris. But there are some special pockets, specifically in the Chehalem Mountain Vineyard, that still have these old Wente clones, and they are now getting ripe in a very special and interesting way. So this is Chris holding one of the clusters of Wente. It's actually, you can see smaller grapes with a larger grape cluster, and that is called Hens and Chicks. And so it produces a very fruit forward, very like mineral, fruity wine that is really drawn out when we do our special Chardonnay processing, which I'll talk to you about in just a moment. So, at 00 Wines, the way that we think about terroir is that the human being, the hand of the winemaker, is really part of the terroir itself. So here we are in our barrel room, our winemaker, Wynn Peterson Nedry in the Willamette Valley, Chris, and our other winemaker, Pierre Millman. So, 000 is the number in numerology of potential. And so 10 stands for the potential of Chardonnay, and 10 stands for the potential of Pinot Noir. So we always say that our winemaking techniques really draw out the potential of these really special places. So like I said before, we produce approximately 2,000 cases of wine here. 75% of that production is Chardonnay. So when we pick our Chardonnay, we do a very special process. We call it the black Chardonnay method. We press it off very, very long, very hard cycle, and we do not add any sulfites to the pan. So this is an action shot of that beautiful Wenti fruit Chardonnay when it is pressed off. We don't do any settling. We just, put it right into barrel. The Chardonnay remains in barrel for about a year, and then it's finished on stainless steel on the fine lees. So it's very like minimal intervention because we really want to draw out the expression of the vineyard itself. We also don't inoculate, and we do native yeast fermentation and very minimal filtering and fining on the finished wine. And also with our Pinot Noir, we do a very special process to bring out the potential of place as well. We actually import through iTech Wines in California, terracotta amphora from Italy. And we hand snip all of our Pinot Noir berries and we place each single berry into the amphora and let this spontaneously ferment. So Lars, you have some of our Chardonnay today that you're enjoying.
I do.
Yes, yes. And our Pinot Noir, we only produce 300 to 400 cases per year. So it sells out almost immediately every year because of this very special process. But when it ferments in the terracotta, it really does preserve the like the beautiful, fresh fruit flavor. And it just finishes with this intensely gorgeous texture and incredible color. So this is a full collection of our wines that we release every year. We do a few Willamette Valley blends, that very good white, Lars, that you're enjoying right now. That's a blend of Chardonnay from across the Willamette Valley. The extra good white, which is a blend of the heritage clone, Dijon and Wenti. And then we have some single vineyards as well. The Richard Herman Cuvée is always our hallmark on the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay side, named after my father-in-law, the gentleman who got it started. So the Willamette Valley is really exciting right now. We're going through sort of the third revolution from the early pioneers, and their children are now becoming winemakers. So we're very excited to be a part of this new tradition, making wine in the new world with old world techniques.
Beautiful. And I'm enjoying the VGW. What does VGW stand for, Catherine?
It stands for very good white.
well stated, because it is.
Yes,
It's got beautiful
yes.
minerality, nice round fruit, almost a little butterscotch, hints of butterscotch on the edge, not overwhelming. Nice citrus. It's really very nice wine. I have two very quick questions for you. You
Yes.
talked about some of the vines being own rooted. Is phylloxera not an issue in those soils, or is that just a cross your fingers sort of thing?
I believe it's a cross your fingers sort of thing. There are, a lot of the vines in Willamette Valley have been replanted because of phylloxera. However, there are these very special heritage pockets that are really tucked away that have not been touched by other vineyard managers. And yeah, they're very special. We're very excited to work with them, but it is a cross your fingers sort of thing.
And the hens and chicks, I always understood that as a phenomenon that you didn't want, but it sounds like from what you're saying, that's fairly common with that clone. Is that true? Is that commonplace with that clone? Is it one of the benefits of the clone?
Well, that's one of the hallmarks of one of the old Wenti clones.
Okay.
We're just excited to be able to use this fruit as it is for the 000 Wines project. So we never look at something as not good nor bad. We just take what nature gives us. And by employing this black Chardonnay technique, we're able to really just draw out the really super concentrated fruit flavors from that clone.
I have to compliment you on that, the black Chardonnay technique, because I worked with winemakers years ago that always did that. They found that almost exaggeratedly oxygenating a wine when it's first crushed looks really scary. But the results, then you get larger particles that sort of filter out. It gets rid of the bigger chunks sooner, to put it in lay terms, and does make for a beautiful wine. So congratulations and thank you. I'm going to ask you to take your share screen down.
Okay. Sorry, just one second here.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Brava. So next up is Alberto Moretti coming to us from the hills of Chianti at 6 p.m. Alberto, being from Tuscany, was drawn into, he went to University of Florence and was drawn into the fashion business, studied business, and then got involved in some different projects in fashion, but always heard his true calling, the passion that he always had for his family's wine business, and went back to the estate that was founded by his grandfather. So buonasera, Alberto. Welcome. Tell us about your special place on planet Earth and planet Italy.
Hello, Lars. Hello to everybody. Thank you for this fantastic presentation. And I'm very excited to be here with all of you because now through Zoom, we changed the world after pandemic, right?
True.
I am, like you said, Alberto Moretti, the third generation of the family involved in wine. Let me just open 1 second my presentation to show you some info quickly. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Lovely.
Sorry. Let's start from the story. Where we are. We are in the center, like you said, in Tuscany, between Florence and Arezzo, like you can see here on the plan of Tuscany. Tenuta Sette Ponti means 7 bridges. Why 7 bridges, Sette Ponti? Because we have 7 bridges that pass through the Arno River that we have to pass to arrive from where we stay to Florence. So this is the name of our property. By the way, this fantastic bridge, it's the one that stays behind the famous painting of Leonardo da Vinci on Mona Lisa that at the moment, unfortunately, is not at our house, but is in a Louvre in Paris. Sorry. Here we are. My grandfather, Alberto, luckily I have his name, was a very nice, clever, lot of fun man, architect. A lot of fun because he was really in love of country, olive oil, hunting, cooking, and obviously wine. He bought this property on the year 50 from the royal family. In this case was from Margherita and Maria Cristina di Savoia. This part of the royal Italian family bought this property years and years before. And luckily, my grandfather get at that time the central heart, really the central heart of this property that they have on Tuscany. Just to give you another small part of the history, I would like to tell you that on 1716, the Grand Duke of Tuscany make a declaration, we can see on the left, that gave the place of Valdarno Superiore, where we stay, where our property is located, that have kind of very good quality at that time for wine. So this was good. Here, just to introduce you, my other brother, one is me, and one is the, let's talk in fashion, our fashion art director of the family in terms of wine. He arrived also from other business, even if it was like the second generation, but he was so involved on the wine business with the full passion of wine. And this get to him, especially one point always. You were talking, Lars, about luxury. I can tell you that he get luxury for sure in one thing. Everything have to be at the top of the quality and no matter what to have. I think that this is one of the answers to get the quality. For him, give you an example, he can spend 1 month to decide the best cork. And we say, Daddy, but we have to do the wine. No, we don't have to stay 1 month on choosing a cork. but this is an example of the approach that he would like to have in each thing that he make on the wine business. So quality, because we spend and we have like one person for 1 hectare of work, and all the work on Tenuta Sette Ponti is do it by hand, exclusively by hand. Give you an example. We with one person, we do 1 hectare. Prosecco, that by the way, there is many very good. One person make 10 hectares to give you a comparison, because obviously it's a different kind of industrial wine. We don't have Prosecco, but we drink, by the way.
Of course.
I would like to give you some quick information to give you where we stay. Our terroir, clay, full of clay land. It's very important for our Sangiovese that we will try on Crognolo, but Galestro stone, this kind of quality stone that we have and we mix in our property, one is good for the Sangiovese, and the other one is very good for the international variety that we have, like Merlot, Cabernet, or Petit Verdot, that is in our perhaps Oregano in this case that we are trying together today. Another important thing is that by us under we have this part of small chain of Apennino mountain, and this helps, especially in spring, and to keep fresh the vines, and fresh even more for this current of wind on the period of summer, that usually in Tuscany it's quite good, let's say. This picture that you can see, it's one of the best for our Merlot vine, because it's all around with bush and make the freshness that helps, especially for Merlot. I will give you another example of our history of vineyard, and in this case, this is our Vigna dell'Impero. This one was inside already of the property that my grandfather bought, because it comes from 1935. 1935, so he had like 75 years old, and this is the original Sangiovese that is inside of our property, and is the one from that where we get from the 1935 our original Sangiovese that we plant in the property, and is the one that we have now in our Crognolo wines. That is our like Sangiovese modern style. That is also our like flags in terms of Sangiovese in the world. This is one of the vines that have planted in 1935, just to show you how it's old, but it's also a person now, because he can answer you how will be the season. They already understand everything better than us. When we make the selection and the green harvest, when we have these old plants, even we don't have to make, because they already select by themselves everything. We work a lot, like we said, in by hands on, and we make the double selection even on the berry by hands, obviously for us, but like I said before, it's a very important path that we need to have. Let's spend some word about, obviously, our first Crognolo. It's like I said to you, it's the Sangiovese modern style. In this case, we try the 2017. It's almost Sangiovese with a little touch of Merlot. I know that there is a lot of people that are very, very well-known wine sommelier experts, so I don't want to say nothing. I just give to them all the sensation that they can have, all the experience that they can feel in the mouth.
You've got a minute left, Alberto.
What?
You've got a minute left.
Okay, thank you. So let's stay in Oreno, our best wine in terms of identity and famous. It's our Merlot 50%, Cabernet Sauvignon 40%, and 10% Merlot. This is the wine that make our family famous, probably in the wine business. So I would like to say thank you to the job that my father have done until today, and I hope to do something like him. Thank you, Lord.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alberto. So we did have a question. Somebody asked if you make 100% Merlot at all.
Who told you?
No, it was a question. Do you make 100% Merlot?
Will be a surprise in the market that we are coming on the market, but it's because nobody knows. And so I say, how you can know this?
There you go. Well, somebody is a sage.
Yes, we will do a very small production because we have 7, but it's real, it's not a joke, like Sette Punti, so 7 again. We have 7 different areas of Merlot, and from this we will make a small selection to make 100% Merlot. Yes, it is. And the name will be Sette, like 7.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I love the fact that you're using Petit Verdot, or I love the fact that you're telling us that you use Petit Verdot, because I've seen that Petit Verdot is a great workhorse in Tuscany. Not everybody admits to using it, and I think that's great that you're using it as well.
Yes, Lars, it's true, and also it's fantastic how it comes, Petit Verdot. I have to tell you that we use 10% in Oreno, and of this 10% in the green harvest, we have to select some years, even the 60%. Wow. Because it's fantastic how it can be so powerful. So I think it fit very well in our soil and obviously our climate condition. And obviously they try for time and time, but this touch is important because it's like, let's say, the person that take together other 2 persons and make it feel all together better. So it helps the union between the opulence of the Merlot and the elegance of Sangiovese. It helps to make them having an affair, a love affair.
That's fantastic. Beautiful love affair. All right, Alberto, I'm going to ask you to take your share screen down, and then we're going to actually stay in Tuscany, but just cross another few bridges to an area that is still in Tuscany, but may as well be in a different world.
Exactly.
So they have my dear friend Igor Marini coming to us from outside of Castello Banfi. You can see it over his shoulder, and he's braving the elements to show us his luxury site today.
Exactly.
Welcome. Ben arrivato, Igor.
Grazie, Lars. Thank you so much, all of you, to host us in such a beautiful webinar. We thought it was very interesting to talk about special and luxury side and being in the luxury side. So Banfi was founded in 1978 by John and Henry Mariani in the central part of Italy, in Montalcino, let's say in the middle between Rome and Florence, 2 hours from the capital city of Italy and about 1 hour from famous Florence artistic city. And we are basically in the middle of one of the most famous, to not say the most famous appellation in Italy, Brunello di Montalcino. And Banfi is the leader producer of Brunello di Montalcino. We have a huge estate of 2,800 hectares. 1/3 is vineyards and the rest is forest, wild forest, is olive trees, is plants, is 100% agricultural project. And actually Banfi is the largest contiguous wine estate in Europe. So everything in a single plot. So what is the philosophy of the family and the Banfi still today is sustainability, is pioneer, is research, is study. So we firmly believe in sustainability as a comprehensive concept that takes all of the supply and support and production chain. And that's why we based everything we do with a kind of very, very precise message, which is that every action must be socially fair, environmentally safe, and economically feasible. So being Banfi such a huge company, we were extremely proud to start developing a huge research on Sangiovese grape, which is the only one allowed to be used to produce Brunello di Montalcino, and introducing, pioneering agricultural method of production with zonation, dividing the vineyards in small, little single vineyards, and picking, fermenting, and aged separately every single one of those with a potential of, let's say, more than 20 Brunello to be produced every year. Of course, we don't, because it's not economically feasible, but actually we are definitely going deep into study for every little corner of the estate. And sustainability is also a part of a big concept, which is saving water. Water is very, very important in such a global warming climate where we are now. And then it's keeping the forest, using very, let's say, low input chemicals for agriculture, trying to preserve the flora and the fauna existing. And that's why we definitely concentrated all of our efforts in producing quality by sustainability. So being, of course, such a huge company, the result of this kind of project and philosophy was, of course, not only being the biggest producer of Brunello Montalcino, but also to produce a huge quality, high-end Brunello Montalcino, and individuate some very special zones like the ones we are today in, that are, let's say, a kind of a jewel area for the company. And Poggio Le Mura is the area where we are now. So our castle is a medieval castle that it's the headquarters of Banfi, where we have, of course, a very nice luxury wine resort. Then we have a Michelin star restaurant into the castle since few months. But the area surrounding the castle where I am now is called like Poggio Le Mura, and it's a part of the estate where we do produce the best quality wines of the Banfi portfolio. And that's why we are here representing this as a natural PowerPoint in the back screen. So because this is the place, let's say, the site, the special site where we are focusing today our presentation. So Poggio Le Mura is in the southwest of Brunello appellation, so in Montalcino commune, and it's let's say surrounded by beauty. So in the south we can face some nice mountains, and the Amiata Mountains that you can see now with my fingers is a volcano about 1,700 meters, covering and protecting the environment from cold winds coming from the Apennine Mountains. And then the sea on the other side is about 40 minutes, and the north, let's say, on the other side is what is also covering and protecting this kind of magic triangle of land in the middle of nowhere. So, but absolutely outstanding for wine production. And Poggio Le Mura, as well as Banfi estate in general, is a very strange and unusual mix of microclimates, of different kind of soils, of different also aspects, slopes, and everything. That's why everything is, let's say, condensing the philosophy of Banfi, which is, of course, is tradition, is beauty, is culture, but is also research and is study and is project, and let's say future pioneer. And that's why indeed also Poggio Le Mura, being a little area compared with the total estate, has been divided in 12 different little micro vineyards, and every single one is treated as it was a cru, even if it's not a cru, but is a mixed of different kind of vineyards. So because, as you now will see from our pictures, every 5 meters, the composition of the soil can change because of the steepness, because of the sun exposure, and because of many, many factors, also the age of the plants and blah, blah. As you can see from where I am now, if you go down to the bottom of these vineyards, it's about 10 meters differences. So the ripening down there will never be the same as up here. And also the soil and the sediments and whatever is into the ground will never be the same as up here. And indeed, in the top of the vineyards and the hills in here in Poggio Le Mura is very sandy, is very fertile, is very rich, while in the bottom is a lot of sediments, is stony, is chalk, is limestone. Is a nice combination to give both power, tannic, structure, but freshness at the same time. We are about 200 meters high, and that's the average altitude of Poggio Le Mura site. And the combination of all of these factors make the 12 little micro vineyards of Poggio Le Mura an exceptional case to face every kind of weather difference, vintage by vintage. So by producing the best in every little single micro vineyards that I already mentioned. So the result of Poggio Le Mura is definitely a combination of a huge skill in production, in producing the wines, and as well a huge study in the Sangiovese first, but also in the soil and territory. And indeed, about Sangiovese, Banfi, I mentioned, was the first to study the clones of the Sangiovese grapes. Sangiovese is not only the only one allowed to use for Brunello, but also the most important red grape variety in Italy. And we were the first to identify 650 different kinds of clones of Sangiovese, and then micro-vinify each of them for more than 10 years, and just individuate those that were fitting our quality philosophy. And actually, Poggio Le Mura, so exactly what you can see now, this place was the first Brunello ever made with a clonal research and only 3 clones of Sangiovese. Because till today, these 3 clones are the only one we are using to produce Poggio Le Mura Brunello di Montalcino. So this site takes the name from the castle, but the wine takes the name from the site. So actually, something that is also very important about pioneer agriculture is a new, very brand new trellising system that Banfi invented and patented and studied for a long time. And now the 85% of Poggio Le Mura vineyards is planted with this trellising system. It's called Alberello, Banfi Alberello. As you can see now, a little down, please. Yes, this is a yen shape. It's a yen shape tree that has only 4 canes. So by having only 4, you can reduce the nutrients that the plants need. So a little less. It's very good for, let's say, poor soil, and for Sangiovese mainly. The poorest the soil, the highest the quality of Sangiovese usually, and the lowest the crop. And then at the same time, you are reducing also the working hours, so the man labor for this kind of plants, and at the same time, all of the cuts, avoiding, reducing, let's say, a huge part of the Esca disease that is very common, especially in the central part of Italy or in the Mediterranean hot climate area, wine area. So Alberello Banfi is furthermore another more, let's say, fantastic way to express how the philosophy of Banfi is combining both tradition and research. But the result of this kind of special site, a luxury site, is a wine, of course. So I'm taking that and trying to talk about it.
With perfect timing.
With further time. This is Brunello Poggio Le Mura. So Brunello di Montalcino is 100% Sangiovese and must be, usually is a very difficult balance between tannins, pale color of Sangiovese, high acidity, alcohol, and usually taking a lot of time to get balance, let's say. But the superpower of this magical site is to keep all of these characteristics of Sangiovese and enriching with a very natural finesse, which is due mainly from the position, the height, the altitude, the windy, the draining soil, but also with very, let's say, silky tannins, concentration of color a little bit more than the normal Sangiovese, and resulting in a very voluptuous and smooth and rich Brunello di Montalcino. Let's say a traditional wine, Brunello di Montalcino, made with a very modern hand. So this is more or less
the current vintage of the,
so the current, yeah, the current vintage we are tasting now is 2016. That is actually the last one in commerce, because Brunello must be released by law after 5 years from the harvest. So 2021 is the release date for 2016 Brunello. Great. And actually, 16 was a very perfect year and vintage, and indeed it's a 5-star vintage for Brunello, possibly aging quite long, and you can forget in the cellar in case you have many, and it will be marvelous even in 20 and more years.
You can try to forget it, but it's unforgettable.
I don't recommend to forget it. I recommend to drink it.
And what is the average age of the vines of the vineyard you're standing in?
So the other average is about 30 years because the most were planted in the 90s. But the Albarello Banfi was made step by step because it's working very well with spotted cordon. So as soon as you need to replace a plant with the spotted cordon, you can easily substitute with Albarello, just plant by plant. And so naturally, we did many experiments in this way and Poggio Mura for that.
Nice. The only other thing, I agree with everything you said, except that I having lived in Montalcino, I know that I can drive from Poggio alle Mura to the sea in faster than 40 minutes. But that's another story.
Yeah, you are a fast driver, Lars.
It's true. I have the tickets to prove it. All right. Thank you, Igor.
Thank you, guys.
My love to the
Cheers.
hills in Montalcino.
Thank
And
you. Ciao.
now who gets the reward for possibly coming the furthest, but certainly staying up the latest or getting up the earliest. Either way is Ian Hungel, General Manager and Chief Winemaker at Torbreck from Barossa, Australia. Ian, you've been called a Barossa boy through and through. You grew up in the area. Rumor has it that you made your first wine at 7 years old using an ice cream bucket. I don't know if that's true or not. But I can tell you that right now you're allowed to take the toothpicks out from under your eyes and give us your presentation, and then we'll let you get back to bed. It's about 2 a.m.
It's about 2:15. So good morning
go.
to everyone.
Thank you. Good morning.
Australia.
Tell us about the Breakfast of Champions.
Well, the Breakfast of Champions today is a single malt Scotch, but that's keeping us going at the end of the season. And we've just finished our harvest in the Barossa for 2021. It's been a great year. We've had nice average yields. We've avoided the frost and the drought of the previous 2 years, and the quality looks very good. It's been quite a cool growing season, and we're very pleased with what we've been able to make so far. Still a few ferments to go, another week to press off, but yeah, there's a lot of smiling faces in the community, and it's going to be I think another great year.
All right, I have your slides, so whenever you want.
Fantastic. If you want to put those up.
Great. Okay.
Excellent. So we'll just move on from that one.
Is that what you look like at 6 a.m.?
Yeah, that's early start that day. So a little bit about the Barossa Valley. It's the southern part of Australia. We're 1 hour north of our capital city of Adelaide, and we're about 30 kilometres to the east of the ocean, and we're bounded by a range of hills that actually passes through the state of South Australia. Barossa is a fascinating place to grow wine. We talk about sustainability, we talk about age, we talk about heritage and pedigree. Founded in the 1840s by German and English migrants. We work the lands of the Kaurna and Peramunk people, and these are the traditional custodians of the lands that we grow grapes on. And they're incredibly old soils, 300 to 400 million years old. And we are able to, through, I guess, the practices that we have and the sense of place of where our fruit is planted, we have many of the oldest existing living varieties in the world for Shiraz, Semillon, Grenache, Mataro, and Cabernet. So the oldest living examples of those varieties in the world can be found in our region in the Barossa Valley. So today we're working with vineyards back to the 1850s, with the oldest living Shiraz in the world planted in 1843 district. So it's a pretty special area. You can see here the patchwork of vineyards. There's around 700 families that actually grow grapes in our district, and those families, we have about 50% own production and 50% coming from grape growers, and we have about 35 families, which some are 7 generations of grape growing on our soils. You can see to the left-hand side of that picture, the hill range, that's the Eden Valley Ranges. And to the right, the ocean brings moisture. It hits those hills, and we can get enough rainfall in a year to dry farm many of our vineyards. So we're still using a lot of traditional methods in our farming practices. So it's hand pruning, hand picking, dry farming vineyards. And as I said earlier, we've got vineyards that run back to the 1850s that we take fruit from. The winery there that you can see in the picture was built in 2008, and everything that we grow, produce, mature, vinify, and bottle and dispatch is all coming from that one little site there. So we're a relatively new winery, established in 1994, but you know, we really see our strength and our I guess what gives us our point of difference is the soils and the vineyards that we're working from and the families that are growing the fruit. Vines being grown in our region for so long, there's been a process of natural selection over all these years, and we've really settled on traditional varieties that are, I guess, most closely found in the Rhone, both the Northern Rhone and the Southern Rhone. So Grenache, Shiraz, Mataro, Clairette, Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier, Grenache Blanc, Cunoise and Carignan are the varieties that we're now working with today. The type of soils we have, you can see there, they're quite degraded. They're low fertility. The farming practices are all about giving a plant enough space, so we have wide density plants, and the Barossa's diversity, I think, is very much displayed in these different soil types that we see. So you see sort of the red-brown earths over clays and over limestones. There's also patches of sand, and what we've really seen over the many years is actually, I guess, an affinity to a variety with a particular soil type. So Grenache in sand is formidable, and Shiraz going in soils that have high iron content or stone content tends to produce reds that have great structure and longevity. The area that we farm is about 25 kilometres long and about 10 kilometres wide, but we can create quite a lot of diversity in that area. The site in front of you is our Laird. It's our most extraordinary site for Shiraz that we produce. This is a dry-grown Shiraz vineyard planted in 1958, and that is currently facing south in that picture. So we get a lot of cool breezes coming up through the centre of the valley, which has a lovely cooling effect on it. And there's an east and a west side to that vineyard, which is picked in two portions, and that wine is vinified and matured separately. That wine has won 100 points 5 times. So it's a pretty sort of special place to make wine. The steading is a blend of the 3 varieties that we believe best represent what our region is about, and that is Grenache, Shiraz, and Mataro, or Mourvèdre, as it's often called. And this really sort of speaks of the diversity of our soils and the way that wines can be grown. And we get lovely sort of red fruit, raspberry lift from the Grenache. We get incredible sort of texture and power and backbone from the Shiraz, and then lots of earth and spice coming from the Mataro. We avoid any new oak on this wine, really trying to express where the wines come from. So we use large format food for the wines to be matured in, and after around 18 months, that wine is assembled, and it really gives a beautifully embodied expression of those 3 varieties in a blend called the Steading. 2018, incredible year in our region, and so it's the current release, and the wines of that year, it never got too hot, and we had great yields, so the growers were happy, but we also got incredible density and mid-palate weight in the wines that were produced from that vintage. So a particularly special vintage for us in the Barossa. These two wines really symbolise the pinnacle of what we're about. The Run Rig is a celebration of Barossa's old vine heritage. So 6 vineyards from 1901 to 1850 are blended to assemble this wine, and then they're finished with a very small dosage of Viognier from the current vintage, generally around 2%. After 30 months maturation in rig, we get a really complex layered fruit, but there's an elegance to this wine, but there's a density. The old clonal material that established in the Barossa Valley has come from Hermitage, and the clones are different to the modern clones of Shiraz, and we feel that these make a very authentic representation of the wines that are no longer available, where things like phylloxera have come in and obliterated vineyards. So these heritage clones are very special in our region, and there's plots of these that we're custodians of that we really want to sort of farm. And what we've been doing in latest years is taking cuttings from all these plants and actually propagating them on our best sites, hopefully for future generations, for people to, in 100 years' time, be able to enjoy.
Awesome.
Lars.
No, perfect timing. With our 37 seconds remaining, I'm going to ask you, I'm enjoying very much the steading. It's a beautiful wine, nice round fruit, good structure. Now, obviously, we've got a winemaker from Barossa on board. We're going to expect to hear about Shiraz, but we all know a little bit about Grenache, and I would love to hear your thumbnail sketch of how Grenache performs a little differently in the Barossa, and also tell us a little bit about Mataro.
Yeah, so Grenache is really important with, to grow great Grenache, you have to have very low yields. So we're spur pruning, we're growing at, half a tonne to 1 tonne an acre in dry grown manner. So no irrigation. Some years we're in 2019, 170 mils of rainfall for the whole year. So it can be pretty tough growing conditions. But what we get from that is a vibrancy. We get very thick skins, and we get an intensity in the fruit, which gives the wines amazing longevity. So it's a different expression of sort of some of the heavier yielding Grenaches that can be found. But when grown in this manner, we create something with great backbone and, real intensity. Mataro is very much the same. We're working with old yards of Mataro. So I turned 50 this week, so that was a bit of a thrill. But in the time I've been in the wine industry, very, very little Grenache and Mataro has been planted. It's been mainly the modern varieties, Merlot, Cabernet and Shiraz. And so all the fruit that we're working with generally is extremely old. And there's a resilience in these vineyards to weather the seasons, and that they can withstand sort of the tougher vintages. Some years they don't produce any fruit, but then the next year they can come back and deliver. Mataro is quite interesting. It doesn't have kind of a primary fruit characteristic of a red fruit nature like Shiraz does. It's more spicy, secondary, earthy notes, and it has a sort of an exotic component that it brings to wines with great density of colour, lots of spice and tannin. It tends to be a little bit hollow as a single variety, but when added to varieties like Shiraz and Grenache, it can really complement the blend with another dimension to the wines.
Fascinating. That is an incredibly coherent explanation, let alone for 2 a.m. So thank you.
Cheers to that.
Thank you, Ian. We appreciate your getting up and your wonderful explanation of these wines and these luxury wines in this extreme, beautiful terroir. Thank you.
Thank you for including Torbreck. Thank you.
And if you fade off at this point, we'll forgive you. But if you do stay on, we'll have a toast for you at the end as well. So next up is we're staying in the Southern Hemisphere, and we're going to speak with Marcio Ramirez, who is the winemaker for Terruño Wines by Conchitoro in Peumo, Chile. I don't want to age Marcio, but I know that he graduated winemaking school in 1994, which was coincidentally the year that Chile figured out that it wasn't Merlot, it was Carmenere. and really put an emphasis on Carmenere and made it a native grape. Certain producers really taking the lead on that. And Marcio worked with another friend of mine, Enrique Tirado, working with their other wines, Don Melchor and whatnot. Please tell Enrique I said hello, El Jefe. And but Marcio was charged with really leading the charge with the Carmenere. So please, Marcio, tell us about the special site for this luxury grape. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your introduction. But yeah, I'm very happy it's possible to show the Carmenere and the Peumo Vineyard in special. I work in 23 years in Conchitoro, and 20 years live in a Peumo, Cachapoal Valley. It's so many times. This is perfect. This is a very clear picture of the Peumo. In this moment, I think in 2 weeks more, it's possible to start the harvest, the Carmenere. Now is a harvest time, but next week I start the harvest of Carmenere.
Nice.
In a Peumo principal. I think the Peumo is the home of the Carmenere. Where is Peumo? Peumo is in Chile, in the south of Santiago, 120 kilometers south Santiago, between mountain Andes and the coastal range. For me, this picture is very clear for explain about the quality and the characteristic for the Peumo, for the best terroir for the Carmenere in Chile. I think it's for this characteristic. In general, in Chile, the river coming from the Andes mountain go to the ocean. In a Cachapoal River, the star go to the ocean, but this mountain stopped the river and go down and go again on the ocean. But this water coming together for the cold wind on the Andes, and this mountain stopped the wind, and only small quantity the cold wind up the mountain go down and refresh the vineyard. This is a particular different to the another players and another place of the Cachapoal Valley. This is a very important for the Peumo, is the best place of the make a Carmenere. Cachapoal River, I live in Cachapoal. It's a beautiful place. It's a lot of water. The Cachapoal River is in water is no problem, and the weather is beautiful. It's not so cold, so hot. It's a very, very warm, and the soil is beautiful soil. It's very fertile. It's possible to put everything in Peumo or in Cachapoal Valley. It's possible to put avocados, hortalize, cherries. It's no problem. It's very good for the production. And this characteristics is for a new home of the Carmenere. Peumo is Conchitoro's second oldest winery. This is near to 1,902 planting for Don Melchor, the founder of the Conchitoro. In this time, this time is very famous for the Chilean Merlot, but it's very famous, but it's more fresh in this area. The first Carmenere arrived in a Cachapoal in early 19th century, but in this moment it's not very clear the varieties. It's a confluence, all the grapes in this time called together and put in a tank and made a red wine. Only in a 1980s, the viticultures, agriculture, vineyards separate the different plants and looking at two types of Merlot. One Merlot is more rose, a lot of color, very soft tannin. Another, and this type of Merlot, more color, more flavor, multiplicate and planting in a lot of. The another Merlot is maintained separate. But in 1994, that the French ampelographer Jean-Michel Boursicot said that our Chilean Merlot is not a Merlot. It's a called Carmenere. This variety is disappear in French post-phylloxera, but coming at Chile pre-phylloxera, and in Peumo, in Cachapoal, seek a very good condition for the multiplication. And our Chilean Merlot is a very good quality Chilean Merlot. In really is a Carmenere. It's a big difference to the Merlot when they say in Chile, or separate food or the Chilean Merlot, Carmenere, is very different. In Merlot in Chile, the harvest is in the middle of the March, and the Carmenere is in the middle of the May. It's a very big difference. Now it's more easy to see the difference, but when it start the growing, it's more difficult to understand what is what. This picture for me is beautiful. It's possible to explain the difference of the Carmenere. It's possible to come in here next week. It's possible to see the vineyard this way. For me, a winemaker, it's very easy to make a Carmenere wine, but the plant say me what is the moment correct for the harvest and make a wine. When the plant, the Carmenere, change the color of the green leaf, move a red orange color, the plant say, hey, this is the moment for make a very good wine. But for me, it's a very easy working for the Carmenere.
It's like a pregnancy test.
And the Peumo vineyard, why is the best place of the Carmenere? I think it's for a weather condition and the soil condition. For the weather, it's a privileged temperature. The spring arrives very early, and it's possible to more warm very, very early. And the early birder, 20 days more early than the another player in the park. And it's possible long growing period. This is very important. The Carmenere is the more long period of the growing in Chile. Is the more late harvest period. It's the end of the May in general, and need more time for growing. And it's very low rise of the frost. In Peumo, it's a lot of avocado, citrus. It's a very sensitive for the frost, but the Carmenere too. And the warm is very autumn. The spring coming very early, and the autumn in Peumo coming very late. And it's possible to, in Chile in general, a middle of the April, the temperature coming down. But in Peumo, the temperature a middle of the May is decreased very, very soft and maintain a very long period of the maturity. It's possible to concentrate more color, concentrate more flavor, and the tannin more soft and the moment of the harvest. The soil is very attractive. It's a two origins for the riverbank of the Cachapoal River is a alluvial formation, and the mountain is more colluvial formation, and the soil is so deep, 2 meters of 2 meter deeps, and in the bottom is possible to look a water table and maintain the humidity for the Carmenere. And the soil is rich and fertile, but without excess. The Carmenere need a little more fertile, but need a long season growing, and need maintain the leaf active for more concentrate, more flavor, and maturity the tannin. This condition made a Peumo the best place for the growing for the Carmenere. This picture is the calicata of the Peumo soil. It's a very deep. It's possible to look. It's without stone, no stone, and the perfect blend of the clay, silt, and sand. It's a perfect combination. But a little clay for more structure, silt and sand for more red fruit and freshen it in the wine. And the wine made this wine. This is the first Carmenere for the Concha y Toro. Concha y Toro made the launch Carmenere in Terruño. It's a 1998. Today show Terruño Carmenere 2018. It's a 20 years made the same block, the same blocks, 27, the same vineyard, the Carmenere for make this wine. It's not possible to make Carmenere wine is if no empelmo, and specific for block 27. This wine is very, very classic fermentation. This wine is 100% Carmenere, only 8 months in a barrel. The idea is show the characteristic and terroir. No put another things. This is my presentation. I think that the Peumo is a beautiful place, and this variety is a very extreme or no very but it's when the people taste a Carmenere, and especially a Terruño Carmenere, I love it, this variety. But it's a very fresh, a lot of color, very smooth in amount, and the spices is so attractive.
Perfecto, Marcio. You actually even have 2.5 seconds to spare. In that time, just a real fast note. I know that that reddening of the leaves is pretty unique to Carmenere, is it not?
Yeah. In another variety, in general, the leaf is a red, green and move yellow or brown. But in a Carmenere, is change the red, move the green, move red orange and down. But it's a very clear when the harvest is very, very close. It's very attractive.
That's cool. That's nice.
And the big different to the Merlot. It's possible to different. This is a Carmenere, and this is a Merlot is a green, yellow. This is a cake.
Beautiful, great discovery, beautiful wine. Thank you very much, Marcio. All right, so up next, we have a guy who's very glad that he's not broadcasting from Australia right now at 2 a.m. With all due respect to Ian, he sort of bridges two worlds. Timothy Irwin is the GM for the Americas for Penfolds, and he is going to talk about bridging two worlds in many different aspects. So Tim, our peripatetic Australian wine specialist and dynamic communicator, welcome. We're looking forward to hearing about a couple of different beautiful sites and luxury wines. Welcome.
Thanks, Lars. No, it's good to be here. We thought we'd have a bit of fun with it, and hats off to Ian, of course. He's hopefully he's enjoying that scotch, so, and happy birthday, mate. But yeah, we thought we'd have a bit of fun with it today, Lars, especially as we think about luxury selections and sites almost in two hemispheres. And I've sent you a couple of bottles. We're actually going to start today with the Bin 704, which is actually our new Napa Valley Cabernet from Penfolds. And for some people, they might be their heads might be spinning in terms of Napa Valley and Penfolds. But you know, Penfolds is 177 years old this year, dating back to 1844. So pretty rich history. And when we think about the house philosophy of Penfolds and the house style, as we like to call it, we've got single vineyard wines, we've got single region wines, and multi-region wines. And how the Napa Valley project and the Californian project came to life was the thinking, the curiosity. And when we think about luxury sites, there is a lot of curiosity, whether that's, you know, what sites can do for us that we've been working with for over 100 years, and then what are new sites that could potentially craft wines that fit in with that house philosophy. So over 30 years ago, we've had Penfolds winemakers coming to California. We've had a long, rich history with the United States and California, and generations of winemakers. So in the late 1980s, Penfolds winemakers came to California. The going joke is that some of them didn't come back. So the prerequisite now is that some of our winemakers come back with this project. So it started with cuttings from McGill Estate, which is the home of Penfolds, and the Kalimna Vineyard, which Ian was talking about before, which is in the Barossa Valley, that has actually some of the world's oldest Cabernet vines. And we actually took some of these cuttings, starting with Paso Robles, and slowly migrated our way up to Napa Valley as well, as we think about these sites and what they can produce. So when we take a project on and looking at new sites, it's really important that we fit our house philosophy, a Penfolds style. So with the 704 in particular, what we like to say is it's Californian soil below, Californian sun above, and everything else in between is Penfolds as well. So we're thinking about the next 177 years with Penfolds as well, and what that looks like. So that natural curiosity and multi-regional blending has taken us to Champagne. With Champagne, it's taken us to California and Bordeaux in the near future. So we're excited to see how these regions produce wines iconically Penfolds. So when we think about a wine like 704, and Lars, I'm gonna hit you up in terms of it. We've got two wines that we're going to look at today: the 704 from Napa Valley, and then the Bin 407 from South Australia. So hemispherically reversed. The numbers are back 704, 407, paying homage almost to each other. But starting with the Bin 704, I think it's really important as I share my screen here that we're going to regions and finding regions that really complement what we're doing. And that's a combination of a couple of different things. And there's so much that we love about California, and in particular, the Napa Valley. And this is an iconic region that produces, these sites produce lovely polished tannins. There's so much structure to the wines, and just kind of that generational journey to find these sites and keep working with these sites to craft it. So, this is from two kind of regions, the 704, and we have some other wines in the lineup. The backbone being from this beautiful region, Oakville. And when you think about Oakville, some of the world's greatest wines are produced here, and a lovely structure that we love so much. But what also is going to this wine is regions like the Rutherford region and the AVA as well. And so you get those lovely dusty tannins that the great Andrei Chelichev dubbed so many years ago. So when we look at similarities that we've worked with in Australia, areas like Coonawarra, which we'll talk about in a moment, and areas like Rutherford, they're stylistically similarities, but then again, altogether different. And what we're trying to do is craft a wine that really sticks to that stylistic template year in and year out. So an area like Rutherford is so unique, small pockets. Obviously, you've got the mountain ranges either side, still has those influences from the ocean, but again, iconic for producing this lovely style of Cabernets that we love. So the west side of Rutherford's really important. It's really interesting at Penfolds that we look at vineyards have got to earn their stripes over the years. And for example, in Australia, we have the Gersh family, which we've been working with that for 100 years. So in these regions, we're continually evolving and understanding, rows and blocks and what they can do in terms of those microclimates to produce these styles. So as we go into a project like this, it's also to get that house style and that template. It's really important. So what these vineyards are producing in terms of the techniques that we use when crafting these wines at Penfolds, things like header boards for extraction. How does the vineyard interact with oak? And the great Max Schubert, the first inaugural chief winemaker of Penfolds and Grange creator, he always said it's about getting the fruit into the oak and the oak into the fruit as much as it is together. So as you start looking at these trials and a 30-year plus journey to get to where we are, it's really important that we take the time and we work with these iconic sites to get them right. And we develop these relationships over time to keep finding the new ones. So, the Rutherford is an amazing spot, very small pocket as we know that the Napa Valley is, but incredibly high quality as well. So, Lars, what did you think about the 704? I know you're just having a taste there. I think you're on mute there, Lars.
Thank you. I'm usually the one to tell everybody else to take themselves off mute. So I cheated and I tasted both, Tim, but I have to tell you that the typicity in the two of them is almost as incredible as the house style. There's clearly that Rutherford dust there. The 704 is very clearly Napa. It screams Napa, it screams Rutherford. But at the same time, after you taste the 407, which is very clearly, it's got the unctuous nature of an Australian Cabernet, in my humble opinion. And, but I guess it must be, we often talk about, is it technique or terroir? And here Penfolds has amazingly combined both. And the technique has helped sort of bring the terroir. The terroir is still integral, but the technique has helped define the house style. So they're both beautiful wines.
Yeah, working well together. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned 407 as well, Lars, which is the wine you're talking about from Australia. Started in 2000. Basically, people wanted more affordable wine from our Bin 707, our flagship Cabernet. It was started in 1964. And, this is a wine where we're going actually to the cooler climates of Australia, places like Coonawarra, which is a very small pocket, a few hours from Adelaide, the capital of South Australia. So, you know, unlike the Barossa that Ian was talking about before, again, stylistically producing wines, very unique in the world. And that's soil structure. That's what we call the Terra Rossa soil down there, clay, limestone base, very unique in the world. And you've got that kind of whole limestone coast. So when we think about 407, we think about cool climate, we think about these beautiful soil structures and those characters that can come through in the wine, blueberry, cassis, sometimes a little bit of menthol as well. But again, you've got two different hemispheres there, very different. And those soil structures that we're looking at and the regions, all of this playing into that style and that template at the end of the day. So it's important about sourcing the right vineyards as well. And then the backbone, you know, we mentioned about old vines in Australia, and we have some of the oldest Cabernet vines. This is Block 42 on the Kalimna vineyard that dates back to the 1880s. So the world's oldest continuous producing Cabernet vine. So incredibly small yields, great concentration. But again, in years where it really, really fires, it's an amazing, you know, plot of land. And you get a great shot there of, you know, how wild and crazy some of these vineyards are and this sourcing that we have in Australia. So contrasting styles there, very different, both Cabernet Sauvignon, two hemispheres, but iconically Penfolds in their own right. And, you know, as we look to continue to work and evolve and find pockets of these new vineyards, and, you know, the key thing there is we're sustainably farming all of these vineyards as we think about the world and where it's going. So, you know, exciting two wines there, Lars, very different. And I think, you know, that's why we're all here. And we've got some great friends from around the world is sharing a good glass and enjoying something different.
Amen to that. Two beautiful wines. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. All right. So bringing us home back again on the Southern Hemisphere is Christian Wiley, Managing Director of Bodega Garzón from Uruguay, here to talk to us about his Balasto, a wonderful luxury wine. Christian, as he mentioned before, is originally from Chile, studied at UC Davis. So every time I have Christian on a webinar, it amazes me how many languages he can speak and winemakers he knows. He's always got a connection. He's the, I could almost call him the Kevin Bacon of the wine, the winemaking world. Everybody's got a connection to Christian. He found a great home in Uruguay with Garzón in terms of sustainability and in terms of unbridled luxury winemaking. So Christian, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much, Lars. Salud. It's been an incredible tour around the world. I'm thrilled to be sharing with friends and big, important producers, big brands with a ton of history. So thanks so much to Meredith for putting all this together, and obviously for all the help that Nat Geo will give us, you know, presenting the wines around the world. Thanks very much for that intro. We'll go straight into the PowerPoint. I guess everybody's a little bit tired of this, but it's sharing. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, everybody, welcome. Welcome to Uruguay. You obviously probably have not even heard about this country, but it is a tiny country, smaller than the island of England, that it's between Uruguay is between Argentina and Brazil, between two mammoths. I'll go to the map. Hang on, the Nat Geo followers. But what you're looking at in this photo is just about 20% of the winery, and then the vineyards. And in the horizon is actually the Atlantic Ocean. So having said all that, it's important. Okay, it's not changing the slide. There we go. There we go. It's important for everybody to know where we are. It's latitude south premium wine belt of the Southern Hemisphere, Peumo, as well as Barossa. We are in latitude 34.5, more or less, south, so the same exact premium wine belt, New World wine. However, we are the only one that has 100% exposure to the Atlantic Ocean. We are what we refer to as well as a cool climate, like Willamette. We're only located this is within Uruguay, within Uruguay, we're on the east towards the Atlantic. The classic wine growing regions from Uruguay are around the capital, as usual, Canelones and Colonia. But we are basically a new terroir of the 21st century. Only 10 miles as a crow flies into the Atlantic Ocean, facing due south. If that crow can fly another 4,000 miles, it's in Antarctica. So we get very cool breezes coming in, and that's refreshing. It's super important. But it's also a little bit personal for me. If you look at this slide, the circle on the bottom is called Punta del Este. It's like the dream place to come and basically hang out with beautiful people in South America. I was invited here for a rugby sevens and met the love of my life. So this is why I am here in Uruguay. However, it gets even better, and the hotspot, the hippie chic place today, it's called Jose Ignacio, the other little circle. And that's a place where, you know, you get people like Zuckerberg or George Clooney or royalty hang out around New Year's. And we're only 10 miles away from that. So it's a fantastic place in the world with top gastronomy. Garzón was developed by the Bulgheroni family. Is the wealthiest gentleman in the region. And in basically this millennium, he has invested over $1 billion in the wine industry. I'll tell you about that on the luxury side of Garzón in a second. So why Garzón? Here is the end result, but this is basically an experiment. This was Mr. Bulgheroni bought this hill for windmills. And his wife said, no, don't spoil the view. And he had to figure out what to do. And he called a few of the top winemakers around the world, hit it off really well with Alberto Antonini, El Dottore, Capo di Tutti for me, which is a pleasure to work with him. And all of a sudden, Alberto said, wow, this place has incredible biodiversity. It's like a synonym of a top terroir potential. It's a boulder of granite rock. It's the oldest granite in the planet. And you have the same latitude south of all the premium wine growing regions. And it's a cool climate faced from the Atlantic. So he said, let's do a little trial. And this is the trial. Only 1,500 plots. It's a net surface 500 acres or 250 hectares para mi amigo Marcio acá. And it is an experiment. It's like a CAT scan of my brain, but I'm not that crazy. It's basically 20 different grape varieties on the slopes facing north, mostly Tannat, Cabernet Franc, Marcellan. Those are the hillsides that can ripen reds. On the slope facing south, we have white grape varieties like Alvarinho. This is pretty similar to Rías Baixas in the sense that we have a lot of rainfall. We have actually more rainfall than Bordeaux, more than 1,000 millimeters, but I still have some hair. The guy that is doing the work in the vineyard and the winery, they've gone bald like a decade ago. But it's very, very extreme winemaking with a ton of personality. But because of all this combination, the wines are more European in style. We strive for balance, for elegance, very nice, high natural acidity, and just wines that are more, you know, the typicity of the grapes is more similar to what you find in the best appellations of Europe. This is the rock. This is what we called balasto. Balasto is meteorized granite, and it's actually the name of the wine I'll be talking to. So for those of you that are exhausted following all this amount of information, we try to keep it simple. Garzón is the name of the place. Balasto is the name of the rock. It's a 3 billion year old granite. It's the rock, the mother rock that broke with Pangea. So you find it basically from Nigeria to Angola in South Africa. Wow. And you find it from Rio de Janeiro to Punta del Este on the other side. That's where the rock comes from. The magic of this granite being so old is that meteorizes or degrades very easily. You touch it and it breaks, and we're really forcing the vines to go down and feed from the roots. Winemaking philosophy with Alberto Antonini, it's all about expressing the place. He doesn't even want to be mentioned. And the guys that work here are all super humble. And part of the 5 no-nos is we don't really want you to feel the winemaker. We don't want to overripe the grapes, so not too much alcohol. We don't want to over extract. We don't want to over oak. And we definitely want to be as sustainable as possible. We ferment in these tulips, which are an improvement of the Cheval Blanc Troncoconics. You can top load. The cooling jacket is inside the wall, so we don't actually have any thermal shock We don't kill the native yeast. Everything here is done with Garzón proper yeast. And it's an amazing place to make fine wines. The wine today, Balasto, is the only one from Uruguay and the third out of South America to make it the Place de Bordeaux. Without the helps of any Europeans, we got into the party. Now we have to dance. This is we're on the fourth harvest, fourth vintage. We'll be releasing in the Place de Bordeaux, the Balasto 2018, and all of this basically explains why we have such good reception. It's a wine that it's in the mid to high 90s by pretty much all of the different opinion leaders. Really beloved friend who passed away recently, Stephen Spurrier, was here last January 2020. And he wrote on a very important publication that a lot of producers, it takes more than a generation to have an iconic status. And Garzón has achieved it in under a decade. Balasto is a assemblage, a meritage of 5 great varieties. In the case of 2017, is 50% Tanat, 40% Cab Franc, 5% Merlot, 5% Marcelin. We had rain at the end of the harvest, so the Petit Verdot didn't make it into Balasto 17. Now, this is all about luxury, remarkable sites. Incredible biodiversity, super hippie chic destination. We have a restaurant on the premises that is directed by Francis Malman, a celebrity chef. According to the Cantor magazine, is the #1 restaurant in a winery in the world. So wow. Whenever it's possible, come and see us, come and visit us. And we also have, apart from all the voltage and the energy out of this terroir, we have a golf course. It's the only PGA Tour preferred golf course outside the USA. It's part of the Garzón Club. And if Mr. Bulgaroni invites you to the club, you can also make wines here and in all these other properties in Chianti Classico, in Montalcino, in Napa, in Bordeaux, and Greenock, in Barossa. So this is I guess, the new game in town. Someday we'll be as famous as all the other guys, but salud. Thank you so much. I think I overdid it, but cheers.
Oh, you were perfect, Christian. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just going to ask you to take down your share screen. And I want to just give a great thanks to all of the presenters and frankly, all of the viewers today. You guys were great with us. We appreciate your patience. For those of you who weren't able to stay on for the whole time, you can find a recording of this on SomGo as well as somjournal.com. And you can also read our recap in I believe, Meredith, it's the June-July issue of the Som Journal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in any case, you should be reading and checking the Som Journal every month anyway. I hope you guys are enjoying it.
Yes.
Was that right on that one? Good.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Som Journal. Thank you, SomCon. And thank you, Nat Geo. We're all enjoying the new Sotheby's Encyclopedia. And boy, what a trip around the world this was. We really enjoyed the lap of luxury, so to speak, of luxurious wines. Luxury doesn't always have to mean expensive. Luxury can just mean something that's limited and extremely enjoyable. As I say over my shoulder over there or that way, it's something that brings us added comfort, and these wines certainly do. And I think we had some wonderful information provided by all our panelists today. And Ian, is it true that today is your birthday? Is it today? Is it yesterday? Do you know what time it is right now? We need you to come off of mute, though.
50, yeah? 50?
There you go. You're still on.
Ah,
there you go.
There we go. Thank you. It was Monday. I had a good day.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Monday over here.
Perfect.
Well, happy belated birthday, and thank you again for getting up at this obscene hour. And we're glad you had some comfort there with the scotch. And
I'm just going to keep drinking.
Perfect. It gives a whole new, yeah, it's the bars are enclosed in some parts of the world. So thank you all very much. Tune in to Somgo, to somjournal.com, and of course to the June-July issue of the Som Journal. And we will see you next month to talk about Napa. So thank you all very much. Stay tuned and have a great afternoon or evening
Ciao,
or
ciao.
morning, whatever it is. Ian, have a great nap.
Thank you.
Ciao a tutti. Ciao. Grazie.
Ciao, adios,
Bye.
gracias, gracias.
Gracias. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Abrazo, salud. Stay safe. Cheers.
Thank you.